Moments ago, Netflix said it is declining to raise its offer for the purchase of Warner Brothers Studios and HBO, following the Warner Brothers Discovery Board's determination that Paramount, which is not just going for Warner Brothers Studios and HBO, but also the whole enchilada, including us here at CNN, Paramount has submitted a superior offer, according to Warner Brothers Discovery's board. As I've noted, Warner Brothers Discovery is the parent company of CNN. So let's get right to CNN chief media analyst Brian Stelter. So let's start with the question, why did Netflix walk away? Ted Sarandos and others at Netflix made it very clear they really wanted Warner Brothers Studios and they really wanted HBO.
Right, in this corporate tug of war, it seems Netflix has suddenly let go of the rope. There's a lot, of course, that could still happen here, but the big news this afternoon is that Paramount suddenly is in a much stronger position to take over CNN and the rest of the Warner Bros. Discovery company, which includes HBO and the Warner Bros. Movie Studio and all those other assets. Paramount is the company that essentially put this into play last summer. New CEO David Ellison, shortly after taking over Paramount, CBS, that part of the media world, then set his sights on WBD. And WBD CEO David Zaslav started a bidding war as a result. He sided with Netflix, the WBD board sided with Netflix for a deal that had been struck back in December, but Paramount had then launched a hostile takeover bid. And in recent days, Paramount had negotiations with WBD and raised the offer to $31 per share with a bunch of sweeteners that made the deal more appealing, more palatable to WBD. So in the last few hours, we've heard from WBD that it is siding with Paramount, and now Netflix is walking away from the table. There's two elements about this, Jake. Number one, Netflix says, quote, the deal is no longer financially attractive, so we are declining to match the Paramount bid. But number two, Ted Sarandos, the co-CEO of Netflix, was at the White House for meetings today, and I'm told by a source he left the White House in a not very happy mood. There's a lot more reporting to do about that aspect of the story. We don't know anything from the Netflix side about the White House meetings, but it is clear that M&A runs through the Oval Office right now, and it is possible that Netflix has been given signals from the White House that the regulatory roadblocks were going to be too severe for the Netflix deal to get through. Bottom line, Paramount now takes the lead in this ongoing race to take over Warner Brothers. There are still other regulatory hurdles for Paramount, but it's a big, big change now and a big success for Paramount to have Netflix say it's walking away. And there's lots of caveats, Jake. You know, Netflix says it's walking away. There's been new developments every few hours in this story, so we'll see what happens next. But at least for now, Paramount with the clear lead right now to take over CNN.
Explain what you mean. You said M&A walks through the, or M&A moves through the White House. That's mergers and acquisitions. Explain exactly what you mean by that. You're saying that President Trump has to sign off on any one of these deals now if they're big enough.
His government does, right? His administration, historically at FCC, in this case it's the DOJ, the Justice Department, that would sign off. And the DOJ is currently reviewing the Netflix deal that apparently fell apart in the last few minutes. We know that President Trump's taken a very personal interest in this particular deal, however. He has said that it's, quote, imperative that CNN be sold, given that he doesn't like the current owners of CNN. And he has met with the CEOs involved repeatedly. It's a big change from past presidents who have left the DOJ alone to this subject and let antitrust experts take the lead. Trump has been very involved. And so there's a lot more reporting to be done about what he has been doing in recent weeks when it comes to this deal. And I know people will have understandable concerns about what an ownership change might mean for CNN. Paramount's a complicated place right now. It's a company where Stephen Colbert is being pushed out at CBS, but also where South Park skewers President Trump and where Jon Stewart still speaks truth to power, John Oliver as well. It's led by a CEO, David Ellison, who has worked hard to forge a relationship with Trump, but who also donated $1 million to Joe Biden's re-election campaign. So a lot more to come on the Paramount front.
There are four main concessions that Paramount made in order to get the Warner Brothers Discovery Board to really favor its bid. The first one was Paramount, about 60% of the debt that it's raising is coming from foreign companies or foreign funds. You got the Saudi fund, the Qataris, and you have the folks at the UAE. They wanted assurances that those people weren't going to get voting rights. So that was number one. Number two, Paramount basically promised that it would backstop all of its equity financing with Larry Ellison's money. The Warner Brothers Discovery Board wanted to make sure this deal was going to close. Number three, Paramount made a lot of little concessions, like they would cover the breakup fee that Warner Brothers Discovery would have to pay Netflix. And then last but not least, I mean, they got that share price offer up so high, Jim. When Paramount first bid for Warner Brothers Discovery in September, they were offering $19 per share. David Zaslav looks like a genius here because he was able to get Paramount from $19 to $31 a share. And Netflix looks pretty smart too. They walk away, but now one of their biggest competitors is left holding a ton of debt.
Was there another factor, Sarah, here, an administration that sent signals, it seems, about which of the bidders it favored from a regulatory perspective? And as you know, the Netflix CEO went to the White House for a visit. The reporting had been that perhaps he was scoping out the chances of Netflix surviving regulatory approval. Was that a factor in this?
Maybe, but I don't personally think so, because I think both of these deals, Jim, would have faced similar regulatory scrutiny and investigations. There's such massive consolidation that the DOJ would have investigated both. Whether or not the DOJ would have sued to block one over another is a different question. Now, you could say that the president might have put his finger on the scale and asked his DOJ to sue to block one over another. But ultimately, even if he did that, they would have to go to an independent judge in court. And we've seen in the past with the AT&T attempt to or merger with Time Warner, now Warner Media, now Warner Bros. Discovery, that they blocked that. So the bigger question is, would international regulators have blocked this? Maybe, but I don't think it's a regulatory issue. I honestly think that David Zaslav is a smart maneuverer and got one of his biggest competitors to put up an enormous sum for this asset. Warner Brothers Discovery's stock, Jim, is up like well over 60% since this whole situation started. Yeah. Meanwhile, Paramount and Netflix are both down.
There is a journalistic aspect to this, right? Because CNN is one of a small piece, but it's still a sizable piece of this deal. When Paramount bought another major media corporation, as you know, there was immediate editorial change at CBS News, which falls inside that company. Is that something that might be an intention of the Paramount leadership?
It wouldn't surprise me, just because they want to get regulatory approval, and clearly they think that they need to be making these types of concessions in order to get it. I mean, with the situation with Paramount and Skydance, that was a little bit different because they needed approval from the FCC. I mean, they wanted to make sure that those broadcast licenses were transferred over. They're now acquiring a cable company and streaming assets, so the FCC won't be involved. It might be a little bit different, but that wouldn't shock me. The one thing I do want to note here, though, Jim, is that they need regulatory approval, Paramount, Skydance, from dozens of countries around the world. It's not just the US. And when it comes to who's probing this, ultimately, yes, it will come down to an independent judge in court if the DOJ sues to block this. But state attorneys generals may also look into starting an investigation here. And Democratic state attorneys generals have been very vocal about the concerns of Paramount meddling with CNN. So this whole process is not quite over quite yet. You're looking at 12 to 18 months at least of regulatory probes here in the US and around the world before this thing ever closes, if it does.